Inspector within DBAxPress allows you to compare and synchronize data between SQL Server databases. After clicking on Data Inspector, you'll be asked to name the project. You'll be able to choose at the end whether you want to save this or not. You'll first be asked to enter the source server and database. If you use the Find SQL Servers option, any SQL servers found will be included in the dropdown for any DBAxPress functionality. Choose the authentication method and the database you would like to compare. We'll then go through the same set of steps for the target database. Under Options, you can define both the comparison options and the generation options. Any that are checked or unchecked by default are those that were set up in the general preferences, but these can be changed at this time. There are several comparison options such as case sensitivity and trimming strings for comparison, but you might also set how many threads will be used for the comparison and if there should be a timeout. These might become more important factors in larger databases. One additional comparison option to consider is whether to use a segmented identity comparison. Data Inspector either uses an identity segment comparison or an index scan comparison. The index scan comparison opens the entire table and scans from beginning to end. The identity segment comparison opens the table block by block, depending on the block size. The identity block comparison is only an option when the clustered index is a single column, and that column is an identity column. In all other cases, the index scan is the default. As a note, if there are strings involved in the clustered key, there can be additional sort operations that can cause additional overhead to that scan operation. Because you'll have the option to synchronize the databases, the generation options can be set here as well. Using transacted modification SQL will wrap all DML operations into a transaction that can roll back if there's an error. Disabling foreign keys and triggers might also be a generation option that you would like to look at. Clicking the Finish button will start an initial comparison. This is to see if there are any objects that have warnings or aren't matchable for some reason. While you're doing this, you might also want to restrict what items you're comparing. Clicking on the filter icon allows you to create filters. As you can see, you can create new filters and edit or delete existing filters. Filters can be based on object types, object type groups, and text. Let's say that for this comparison, we only want to compare tables and not include views. We can add an object type filter, choose Is, and then Table. After clicking OK, you'll be prompted to give the filter a name. After applying the filter, you'll notice that the view in the comparison has been grayed out. You can also choose to hide the filtered results. In this comparison under Matchable Objects, I can see that there is a warning on the admissions table. When we select the table and click Map Columns, I can see there's an issue with the high school GPA column. There's a legend to the right that indicates what the different colors mean. When I look at the target columns, I can see that high school GPA was renamed HSGPA, so I can map those fields. You can use filters in the mapping dialog box. Using these basically adds a where clause. For instance, you might want to add where the column high school GPA is not null. Under Non-Matchable Objects, we can see that there are 3 objects. Clicking the Warnings button can provide information about why they were unmatchable. For prospect and big numbers, we can see that there is no valid index, making it impossible to match the data between objects. Neither of these tables have identity field, so are unable to use the identity segment comparison. With transfer, there is no similar object in the target database. This comparison screen also allows you to change any of the comparison or generations options prior to running the actual comparison. You also have the option to uncheck any objects that you don't want synchronized. The next step is to run the comparison by clicking the Compare button. After that completes, we can see that there is a difference in the data between the student tables. Highlighting that line and clicking Show Grid will show the data differences. The graduation column is highlighted in red. Looking at the data, it appears that the target database has graduation dates a year later than the original. This may be all that you need to know, but if you would like to synchronize this data, click on Next Step. You'll note the generation options that were chosen initially. You can choose to only synchronize the data, the direct option. You can create a script, or do both by choosing the hybrid option. After choosing Synchronize, the options will be completed and will state if there were any warnings or errors. If this is something that you might want to do on a regular basis, you can choose to save that scenario. This saves as a .dis file and can be opened in Data Inspector. Data Inspector provides a quick and flexible means to compare data between SQL Server databases.